Good evening. This meeting of the Romulus Board of Education is called to order at 6 o'clock p.m. Madam Secretary, could we have roll call?
Ms. Bowles?
Here.
Ms. Kraut?
Here.
Ms. Buckley?
Here.
Mr. Thede?
Here.
Ms. Beard?
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Ms. Funderburg, President.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Ms. Buckley, supported by Ms. Funderburg. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. The next is discussion on the state-required deficit elimination plan. I'll turn the floor over to the administration.
You don't mind?
No, Sherry will jump in. You have in front of you.
Rebecca, do you need the mic? They're taping, so you need the mic.
Did you want to address questions, those other questions you were talking about before or after this presentation?
Why don't we do it after?
Okay,
I always watch people fumble with this.
the top switch should be.
Okay. All right. So on your, before you, you have a document that's entitled State Approved Deficit Elimination Timeline Process. Does everybody have that? Yes? Wonderful.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So what I want to do with you today is walk you through this brand new frontier that sadly we don't want to be at, but here we are. There's quite a process, and the process continues to change at the state of Michigan. 3 or 4 months ago, we were talking about the EFM as being the end-all. That's the end of the road as soon as you get to that EFM, and you've got a couple of years to get there. Some new legislation has come through that has pretty much, the EFM was, there was nothing. So look what's coming. So we wanted to walk you through the process that Sherry and Dr. Daniels and I are going through as we submit a deficit elimination plan to the state. I'm going to do it on a timeline format. So on July 31st, 2013, and I think we all know this, the district must submit the deficit elimination plan, I'm going to call it a DEP, detailing the actions that will be taken to eliminate the deficit status within 2 years. So that deficit elimination plan has to show what we're going to do so that we are in a positive fund balance, or at least at a zero, correct, Sherry, in June of 2015. The plan must include support detail that verifies the reasonable ability of the district to implement the plan. Reasonable ability is evidenced by approved board action on all measures resulting in operational cost savings. And this is a really important detail that we have to understand, because by July 31st of 2013, Sherry has to submit something with this supporting documentation that will verify that we will be out of deficit by 2015. The MDE will then review, so off it goes, off into Lansing land. The MDE reviews that submitted plan, and it returns it to the district with either approved or request for modifications.
Ms. Peck,
Mm-hmm.
MDE, just for our audience, so.
Michigan Department of Education.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know we get stuck in our
I know,
acronyms.
right?
The estimated turnaround time that the MDE is projecting for these deficit elimination plans is anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. So it will take 2 to 3 weeks for us to see the results of their determination of our deficit elimination plan. On August 23rd is when we're assuming, or assuming is the state will return to us by August 23rd the results of our original deficit elimination plan. If that plan is approved, the district will submit monthly financial reporting that reflects and verifies that the DEP is being carried out. If in any month that report does not reflect this, the Michigan Department of Education will notify the district, and the DEP is again at risk of being rejected. So that's a monthly review. If it's not approved, so we've submitted it, they send it back and they say, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough. The district is given 48 to 72 hours to return an amended DEP with board-actioned evidence to the MDE for approval. And we go back into that 2 to 3 week time window. Now, we've talked to other districts that have gone through this, and I'm sad to report that there are many. They are not kidding when they say it's 48 to 72 hours. Their boards of education are on alert every day because the action has to be taken by the board in order for that plan to be resubmitted again. So now we're at August 28th. You've done a wonderful job, and we're resubmitting what we're calling the amended Deficit Elimination Plan 1. 2 to 3 weeks roll by. We're at, I'm sorry, let me back up to August 23rd. If we're not approved, we're going to call that strike 1. Now we're on September 13th. We've resubmitted an amended plan. Again, if it's approved, same thing. It's a monthly cycle. It's reviewed. It will have to be resubmitted if it's shown that we're not following the requirements, the financial requirements of the deficit elimination plan. Oh, we went forward one.
It's on the back table.
I think there's some extras back there. Yep.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
So you're saying that on the 13th, if it was not approved, then we're at the 13th with the resubmission.
Yes.
If it's approved, then we have to do that on a monthly basis of what our progress is.
Yes.
Okay. A monthly report.
Monthly report.
Okay.
Yeah. We're now on September 13th, so we submitted it. They did not accept it. They gave us that opportunity to resubmit it. They've reviewed it. September 13th has come around. If they approve it, business as usual. You know, we continue with that monthly report, and we keep ourselves on track. If it's not approved, the district will have that 48 to 72 hours to return the amended DEP with the board-actioned evidence for approval. September 13th is strike 2. Sherry then resubmits after the board takes action in that 48 to 72 hour window. A district improvement plan and amended, we're calling it DEP 2. They take 2 to 3 weeks to review. October 4th, if that's approved, again, here we go, we're good to go. If it's not approved, that is at a strike 3, state aid is now withheld. The district will be notified that they have failed to show that they have a viable plan to be out of debt by June of 2015. State aid payment will be withheld and state legislation will be acted upon. I put the last timeline on there because I think it's important to note without our state aid funding, October 18th, the district will not make payroll.
State with the state legislation that they act on.
So we've all heard about Buena Vista and Inkster, two very sad situations across our state, and more are coming, and we're an example at this point. We've had this EFM legislation. It's out there. You know, if you can't get it right, the EFM comes in a couple of years later, 2, 3, 4, whatever. That wasn't working anymore for them because we have too many people, too many districts in this great state that have fallen off this fiscal cliff due to all the reasons that we've talked about over and over again, and that is how the state is choosing to fund public education. So what they had to do, the legislation apparently had no choice but to formulate legislation that, and this is very new to us because it's still being formed right now. It's signed by the governor, and they're trying to figure out how to implement it now. But essentially what happens is if you don't have a deficit elimination plan that has been approved, the state now comes in and says, under this legislation, we are going to dismantle your district. How that's going to happen is still being worked out. There's some conversations going on with the ISDs. The state is trying to decide, should the ISD be the decision maker on this? Should the state be the decision maker on this? But one thing we know for sure is you are not the decision maker on it. If we are in that situation on October 18th or on October 4th or at any point before we get out of deficit, you will not have any say as to how this district is dissolved. And I hate that I'm the bearer of this bad news, but I think that we know what's going on.
And Rebecca, sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's also important for people to understand that that legislation that is so drastic and devastating to communities, the district still exists as a taxing entity.
Yes.
So the local people would still continue paying all voted millages, and those monies would be directed towards paying the bonded debt of a dissolved school district. But they would have absolutely no choice in where the state or the ISD assigns the students or the geographic boundaries.
That's correct.
And they would lose their facilities. The facilities that are within a dissolved area go to the receiving district. That's something that you know, if there are naysayers out there that say, oh, well, this is a great thing, okay, dissolve the school district, well, you're gonna lose every infrastructure you paid for.
Right.
So, that's,
So we thought it was important that the board, you know, have, and of course us as well, since we're knee-deep in this, and Sherry is working with the state every single day. Sometimes I wonder if it's in the evenings as well. But we wanted to make sure that you had a very clear picture of what's going on currently, where we are at situationally, and the board has to take action in order for Sherry to submit that first deficit elimination plan on July 31st. Any questions?
Now, the steps that have happened so far are that we approved deficit budget,
On June 24th.
right? And the state has now notified us that you have this time frame to get your state,
Deficit elimination plan.
right, into them by the state.
Yep, they gave us till July 31st. They notified us, I think June 28th.
June 28th.
Is that
Right.
the letter we received?
Yeah.
The letter was received by the Board of Education president as well as the superintendent.
A copy came to us as well.
Yes, yes, thank you.
And out of the school districts that the state has taken over, like Inkster and Buena Vista so
Buena
far,
Vista. Mhm.
when did they apply for their deficit elimination plan, do we know?
You could find that out.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, was it a year or two ago that they've been fighting to do this plan? Or is it like us, they're in the first stage, and I don't think they closed them in the first stage, because if I remember right, Buena Vista closed down, the state came in and swooped some money into them to keep them open.
But again, that was that was a stopgap measure before they could get this new legislation passed.
Right, but I'm
And-
just kind of curious, when did they apply
Yeah.
for this? How long have they been in this whole plan with the state? You know, did they go through this and get turned down, taken over? Did they get approved and tried to work over a year or a school year, and then, you know, it happened over 2 or 3 years to them instead of, you know?
This is from what the state is telling us, and again, the picture continues to change. And it changes rapidly with all of the different variables that are going on in the community, in the statewide community. So what happened a month ago, certainly what happened 2 years ago, can't be applied today. And unfortunately, even what happened a month ago can no longer be applied. And I'm fearful of what is coming next. We've all sat in awe and horror as new legislation has come down that so significantly impacts our children, without any, it seems, care or caution to the impact of those children.
Yeah, like I said, it'd be nice to do some research on that, on those two districts. Because like I said, to me, it's almost like a late bill. If you're trying to pay it and trying to prove to the company you're trying to pay it, they don't come in and take everything from you. It's when you don't pay it or try to show you're doing something is when they come in and swoop.
And I think that has always been the case, because we have had school districts in deficit since public education was created, and there was a system to manage that. One of the speakers last week had mentioned Garden City sat in deficit for 7 or 9 or 12 years, and
20.
there you go. They were, you know,
They're out of deficit now.
are they? Good. Oh, that's a wonderful
20
thing.
years.
But
But
again, they didn't have to apply to the same rules because there weren't enough districts in deficit. They had a system to manage that at the state level without bankrupting the state. If the state continued to fund at the same level that they did 10 years ago, districts in deficit, the state would then become bankrupt. And I'm not trying to justify state actions, this is just the reality.
So the next piece of the deficit elimination plan is to discuss the budget, where we are, refresh your memory on some of the things that we've already enacted as reductions and that you've taken into consideration when you approved the June 24th budget. I'm going to go through that list, just again to the audience if you haven't heard these items. These are items that the district already took action upon and are within the 13-14 budget. We've eliminated a social worker position, closed Merriman School, and moved Community High School to a contained section at the Romulus High School. We reduced board compensation 10%, reduced the athletic budget in the amount of almost $42,000, ratified a contract with the Romulus
I'm sorry, Sherry. I just wanted to point out for those that may be listening to this tape later, that reduction in the athletic budget was based on, there was discussion as to whether we went with a pay-for-play program or not. The pay-for-play program was estimated to generate about $41,500. This board directed that that amount be cut from that athletic budget so we didn't have to go to a pay-to-play program. So I just wanted that to be clear.
Thank you. The contract ratification for the Romulus Education Association to the amount of $1.9 million in concessions. Custodial reduction, every other day cleaning. We have laid off 3 custodial positions, almost $184,000 worth of reductions. We have eliminated the plumber position through attrition with 1 FTE at almost $90,000. And again, these figures also, they include the salary, the benefits, the retirement, and the FICA associated with that wage. It's the full compensation package that the district is responsible upon hiring an individual.
Okay.
So it's not their base salary. Contracted sub-savings bids, or bid, we went out for bid for our substitute contracted services. So when a teacher is absent and we bring a sub in, we were able to generate $25,000 worth of savings by moving to a different company.
You missed.
Yeah,
I'm
you missed
sorry.
9 and 10.
Sorry. RASA contract ratification, that's the Romulus Association of School Principals or School Administrators.
You missed 8, Sherry.
Sorry, guys. Let me finish that one and then I'll go back. Okay. $227,690 of savings. And then the one previous, number 8, security reduction to eliminate 2 security positions. The total on that is $96,611.
Where were those from again?
At the high school and community high school.
1 each?
Yes. Number 10, I miss,
Nope.
okay. Central office contract ratification, again concessions by the central office staff, $101,000. The elimination of elementary Spanish for a total of $122,880. To eliminate 3 driver positions in the amount of $58,034. Eliminate a secretary position due to attrition at $72,540. All of those items were completed in terms of actions upon personnel and finance, and again, you approved those in your 13-14 budget on June 24th. Item number 15 is a reduction of support service costs related to transportation, custodial maintenance, security, and food service, and I'll explain that in one moment. The cost savings, again, of $3 million, $2,740,000 of those costs are associated directly with transportation, custodial, maintenance, and security. The remaining $259,000 is related to food service. If you remember, general education expenses or food service expenses have to be part of the food service budget, which is not in front of you in detail here, but you did adopt that. Again, we're going through the RFP process, we're going through the bid review process for 2 vendors that submitted those. basically what I'm saying to you, the value that you see in front of you, that $2.7 million, it does not have the $259,000 of food service in this particular line item, but you would see that in food service. So again, the approach is it's $3 million for all groups. It's just one particular group comes out of a separate budget. The hope is if that were to come to fruition, that savings would generate enough fund balance in food service to allow the district to reallocate funding the lunch aids out of the general fund and move those expenses to the food service. But as you know, food service has not been making a profit. We've been losing money, and we have not had the ability to do that. So that's an added bonus that you don't see in here tonight. Right now, general fund is paying for lunch aids. That could be a true cost of running the food service program. So what that means is that the district, including all of those items that I just reviewed with you, has reduced costs by $6,191,900.72. Starting the deficit elimination plan off at the beginning, back in January through March, we were at about an $8.6 million deficit. And again, reacted appropriately with starting concessions with certain individual groups that you see above. The remaining balance to eliminate totals $2,456,350. So unfortunately, there's more work to be done. Again, you just heard Ms. Peck explain the budget reduction process or deficit elimination process. And we do have to the end of June 2015. So that's document A. We'll move on to document B because I wanted to make you aware of something. This document details the exact same information that I've already described to you, although the line item 15, you see that's changed into a 0. And the reason I want to show you this is because line 15 says the budgeted support service cost savings realized. We have not realized savings in that department or that particular line item at this time. We hope to get there in the very near future, but again, we're working hard to realize savings in that area. I wanted you to see right now, by not realizing savings up to this date today, that actually puts us at a place to deficit elimination of $5,196,910.28. So just wanted to show you what we actually have on our books, and we can, that's the Plan A, or Document A is the document right now. If I had to submit today to the state of Michigan or the Michigan Department of Ed, that wouldn't be what I would submit to them. It would have to be Document B. Once again, because we don't have documented savings that we can prove to the state. Okay, Document C, as you know, we have some work to do. Our list of item numbers, I just carried on the line items. We ended at 15 for those things that we've talked about and that have been approved and approved through the budget. Items 16 through 34 are other suggestions to get us where we need to be to complete the document for the state of Michigan. Would you like me to go through them?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Item 16 is to eliminate community high school altogether. And the details of this, just so you know, with 60 FTEs is what the expectation is going to be. It'll generate a revenue of $509,520. The expenditures related to that program currently, or for 13-14, are $530,060. Now that does include a $20,000 movement in terms of moving and restructuring the second floor at the high school to make it a contained space. So that has an extra $20,000 to encompass all costs related to this year only, 13-14. Now our expectation is if we were to close that program, we anticipate that there's a possibility that 30 of those students could be contained in the high school and be a part of the Romulus High School education experience and graduate from the high school. 30 from the Romulus Community High School.
So half of the 60.
Yeah, that's our best guess right now. And the reason I'm saying that is because, as you can see, besides the cost for the $20,000 moving expense, I'll call it, it's pretty much a break-even program, and it was designed that way. When we talked about this back in March and April, we basically put our costs together and made sure that you know, we weren't exceeding the amount of revenue we were going to bring in. But if the, go ahead.
Sorry. With the 30 students that we're talking about, how was that determined that we would only have 30 instead of all 60?
And I guess it's our best guess. I don't know, Ms. Peck, if you can shed some light only because you've experienced administration in that environment.
So we don't have any research or data to back that call up. The only thing we have is anecdotal. What we do know is that traditionally, if a student chooses to go to community high school, they generally aren't interested in returning to general education or what I call traditional education. If they found success in a non-traditional format, they generally go and seek out those non-traditional formats to complete their education. We feel that Romulus High School has a lot to offer. Obviously, we would recruit and attempt to retain 50% of those students.
One other,
I'm sorry.
just one other question. So would it, I wouldn't even say if it would be safe to say, but could we then assume that the other 30 will either drop out or, like you said, they're seeking traditional? So we're talking maybe half of that 30 that we're not getting, they may become dropouts.
That is correct,
Okay.
Mrs. Vanderberg.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, isn't it also a very real possibility that they will either age out of the system or because, in the traditional sense, or the ones that we are able to put into the high school, we may have to supplement with E-2020 for credit recovery. But quite frankly, some of that population is so far behind that it would not be practical.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have many of our students, that's why we estimated half, because we're really looking for those students that have the potential or possibility to graduate by age 19. The other thing that the board has to consider on this, and in the light of, in the scheme of things, this might not be as demanding, but this will impact our Romulus High School graduation rate. We have a 4-year, a 5-year, and I believe a 6-year cohort. It would be impacted because these students would then transition back to the Romulus High School graduation rate cohort. And many community high school students are behind in credits. If they weren't, they would be in traditional education oftentimes.
Now, Rebecca, just a question. Some of these students will either not necessarily be dropouts, but they might go to another program, say Taylor's.
Taylor,
Program, or
Wayne Westland has a very small program. They might accept a few. Southgate Asher has a very large program. And we would partner or attempt to reach out to all of these programs in an attempt to make sure that all children that were wanting to go to community high school and for reasons such as this are not able to anymore, we would try to find a place for them. We also have adult education and GED programming. So obviously we would, our first line is always with our younger students is, let's get that high school diploma. But we could also transition some of our younger students too, not under, not too young, but, some of our 18, 19, and 20-year-old students over into the GED program as well, which is a 100% grant funded and paid for.
But that's run out of our building as well, which would be at the high school. So we've
Yes.
already making a space for them. They would still have that particular space, but it would be the GED
They
program, or how would
Yeah.
That would have to be.
It would be in the evening. If
Okay.
any daytime GED or adult ed programming will be off-site. The offices will be at the high school because we needed a place to manage our records, but we won't have any classes there during the day, only in the evenings.
Okay.
Did you still have a question?
I just would ask a question. In that break-even deal, does that include the transportation that we transport down?
Yes.
Okay, next.
17, which isn't something popular at all to the Board of Education, the community, or the students, is eliminate general ed transportation. As you know, we're required by law to support special education transportation. Minimum savings is $1,968,000. 18, eliminate the athletics program. Again, not so popular, but to eliminate the entire program less the revenue we receive for gate receipts, we'd see a reduction of expenditures of about $441,000. A new program that we've just implemented the documents and the detail for, but have not actually implemented with our students yet, is the early college program. That's number 19. And the possibility of eliminating that to reduce expenditures by $250,000.
And actually, the students have
Okay.
participated.
Okay.
They've already registered for classes.
Okay. What I meant by that is they haven't started
Yeah.
school. Okay.
Sherry,
Num-
did you take into account, because I know we gained some students back because of this.
No,
I know
I have
for sure
not.
they came back.
I have not.
Because of this program.
No.
Yeah.
That would be on the revenue side, and I have not. And the only reason I really haven't done that is because right now we're already, our budget is set on a 200 FTE reduction, and I'm really not sure where that's going to go. And although it's great to have another 3 students, I'd have to massage the enrollment data, and I'm not sure we're ready to do that yet.
Okay.
But it's a good point. Number 20, elimination of high school advanced placement classes. As you can see, it's a to be decided. We weren't able to extract that information yet to figure out exactly how much that is in terms of our staffing. But if that's something in the direction that the board would like to go in, we would obviously have to provide you a figure for that.
I guess my question would be, would it be cheaper to allow them to take the college classes and pay for the registration and the credits versus our supplying a teacher for a small class? I mean, I don't want to eliminate the children being able to have the college courses, but I'd like to make sure that they don't have it here in our building. If it's cheaper, then they still can take it at one of the colleges.
So a dual enrollment situation?
Well, yeah, the law provides that.
They
I
do.
mean, We're actually required to provide.
If they request it.
Opportunities. If we don't offer them,
All
we're
right.
required to do that.
But I'm sorry, I just want to interject here. I just want to make sure the board understands that dual enrollment, the board, the district is still responsible for paying the college for those classes.
Right, but I'm just saying, is that cheaper than supplying the teacher with a small class versus paying for them to take their classes elsewhere?
What is the requirement for those classes? Because, you know, to my knowledge, they aren't small classes. And I guess we need to define what small is. So what is the capacity for an AP class is what? And normally, how many students actually are participating in that class? Yeah, they're pretty full. So
I'm just concerned that we're going to lose them, that now they're going to go to the early college program, a lot of those honor students. So instead of staying here and taking AP classes, they're going to be taking the community college classes. And so that's going to leave our own classes smaller than normal.
for the early college program.
Right, they're going to go to the community college versus taking the AP classes there in-house.
It's a possibility. Yeah, when we talked about, I mean, it is a possibility, because the goal with the early college program was not only to provide our students with this opportunity, but it was also to use an opportunity to pull students in through school of choice as well. So you're right. I mean, we're cherry picking from our own student population, but we're also pulling from other school districts as well. We have gone through the first round of enrollments, as I think Cheryl or Danielle had mentioned, that we have started this process. We have about 40 students that are 35 students that are signed up and going to participate, planning on participating in the early college program. That impact and that we were able to get to the scheduling piece of that before the end of the school year, which is why we had those applications due when they were, because our counselors have to load balance and the principal has to set schedules. And it didn't change the demand for the AP classes, and it did not lower the class sizes. What it did was reduce an offering of an AP class. But and oftentimes we have more than one offering, certainly of those, I'm going to call them popular AP classes, you know, the AP biology, the AP.
So instead of two
composition.
sections, there's one.
Correct. So we were able to adjust for that at this point in time. But this is proposing that we eliminate all AP classes.
Moving on to number 21, again, something that's within the budget but new to the budget in 1314 is the school resource officer and the elimination of the costs associated with that. Again, that's a contract with the city of Romulus, and the total value is $155,000.
Sherry?
Mhm.
I think, again, we need to point out with that program, 80,000 of that is something the district has been paying for many years. when we entered into this agreement with the city to make the actual SRO program that rolled that along with 2 other officers into this program. So we would be totally eliminating the police presence.
And I
particular
I think
option
that
here?
we need it both in the
Yes.
high school and the middle school. I just questioned that, did we need it, was it a necessity in our elementary schools? A budget, deficit budget means we need to concentrate on necessities. That's how I look at it.
Mhm.
How would 155 eliminate all of the officers?
We wouldn't have any police officers in our building.
Because 80 is for
Contract.
one, that's the contract, and then the other ones are 50%, not to exceed 75,000.
But even if we cut half of that, we still keep one doing that. We still keep
We'll
Jackson.
pay
I mean,
80,000.
Correct.
Yes, but it would, yeah, if we
That's what
chose
we've
to.
been
And go
paying.
status quo as we're doing.
But
Yeah.
we eliminated security officers, and so, well, that was high school and
But we
middle
would need
school.
one.
But
Yeah,
I
we would.
know
We need
that we're
somebody at
starting
the
to
middle
lose
school.
students from the middle school, and I think that a presence there might help.
Go ahead.
Again, none of these are popular. Number 22, elimination of music and art programs K through 8. The total value is $310,285. The portion that's relative to the elementary is $161,592, and the portion relative to the middle school is $148,693. 23, reduction in music and art programs 912. Currently, it's a half FTE art teacher and a half band. Total value $124,048.
That's the amount of the reduction. We have more
That's
than
correct.
that staffed.
Yes. The reason that we can completely eliminate it is because of the curriculum requirements that we have.
Now, is choir part of band? Is that how it's?
We don't.
No, choir is not part of band.
It's
Choir
not
is a-
part of band,
choir
it's
is a
part of
class.
music.
Choir is a class
Two
that's taught by it happens to be taught by our band teacher, but it is one class in the high school. I believe it's one. Is it Daniel? Yeah.
Yeah, she did guitar one year, and then she changed over to choir the
Right.
following year. So, but it's by the music teacher runs that.
Number 24, again, not probably palatable as the other items I've described are not either. Reduction in custodial and maintenance staff, estimated 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and 1 maintenance. Value of $273,228.
Sherry, can I just add
Absolutely.
a couple of cents in here? Our current staffing at all of these buildings we are understaffed for the square footage that these individuals need to clean and to maintain. There's levels that are out there, square footage, age of building. Sherry runs these reports from the groups that kind of over.
Michigan School Business Officials
you.
has a worksheet that they put out every 2 years
Thank you. And
to
we're
assist
already
districts.
we are already understaffed on that. I believe the Board of Education was already aware of it, but I just wanted to draw you back to that attention.
Number 25, close the pool at the high school. Again, a minimum savings at $70,000. 26, collection of all taxes in the summer. Probably about a year and a half ago, it might be 2.5 years ago, in the month of December, the district it had an option whether to collect all taxes in the summer or to collect them 50% with the summer and 50% in the winter. And the district or the Board of Education then decided that they would do a 50-50. I'm bringing this to your attention tonight because it would assist us in the ability to not have to request for a school aid loan, because all of those funds would be received by, most of those funds, those that are not delinquent, by September 15th. So it would have a huge positive implication to cash flow.
And Sherry, we, as a board, we did discuss
Yeah,
this
yeah, I was just-
about a
You
year
have.
ago, saying that if we did this, we wanted to have,
Enough
you know,
time.
enough time, and this is something that the board may want to consider. This obviously wouldn't happen this summer, because this summer's tax collection has already happened. But if it's something that we want to do for next summer, legally, we have lots of time.
Well,
But-
we have until December. It has
Yeah.
to be, the board would have to decide to do that by December 31st of 2013. I know it's 6 months, but 6 months really gets away with this.
Well,
away from us
my
quickly.
point was that perhaps if we seriously want to entertain this as a board, we may want to take action sooner than December. Not tomorrow, but sooner than December. And the reason I say that is because every year, mortgage companies evaluate homeowners' escrow accounts. And homeowners, if they know that this tax shift is going to happen,
Right.
perhaps they might tell the mortgage company when they're notified, you know what, leave that in escrow, I have a change coming. Or, they can make that decision. They're empowered to make that decision. Instead of us notifying them a month after they've gotten their escrow adjustment that there's a change coming. So I think that's something that needs to be on the radar.
I think for me, I look at it as for senior citizen, usually they can file and they can get their homestead property credit back in time to pay their taxes, and so that's why they use it to pay their winter taxes. So for them, this would be a critical thing.
And I think that one of the reasons why we chose to divide it, one was because of the time frame and how everything panned out. But two, we wanted to take into our senior citizens. But again, setting a time frame for us, for me, I'm thinking if we started far enough ahead, letting people know that this was something that we intended on doing, then if we started far enough ahead, it gives people an opportunity to financially plan to do it. So then that way, they're not taken by surprise when they get their bill and it's, all of it, so, and I guess the thing is finding out how much time does a person really financially need in order to make that type of preparation. Because if it's coming and that it's going to be one bulk sum, then how much time do you need to really kind of prepare for that?
And another one of the reasons that we had gone with the 50-50 collection is part of our collection was out of compliance.
Right.
So we actually had to take action to get in compliance, and the choices were, we had to collect all of I think it was the whole, or the 18 mills. We were collecting that half and half, and the others we were doing all at once, and the state notified us it has to be either 50-50 on everything, or everything has to be in the summer tax collection.
Yeah, I was going to remind you of that.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Or all or 50-50. Okay.
I think we had two questions out in the audience.
I didn't know that. Sorry, I didn't know that because I was going to say a few years back with the county charter, if you'll notice, when you guys got your tax bills, one year they rolled a third up to the summer.
Mhm.
The next year
Right.
they rolled, I was going to suggest maybe if
Okay.
a year, we could have done something
Right.
like that. I didn't know.
The requirement.
Yeah, and actually, the county has special legislation that was enacted at the state that allowed them to do that. But thank you. Was there another question?
Oh, I just had a comment, and I do have a question, but I'll wait until communications in regards to community eye. As far as how much time, parents have, for the tax. I know that you're on a time schedule, but if I was sitting on that board tomorrow morning, first thing, if you have to call a special meeting, you better get that information out and get it out quick, because September, school, that's school closed, November, Thanksgiving, December,
Right.
is Christmas.
I agree.
Yeah.
So if
It
you
is.
don't get it out now, then you're gonna have this place packed again. We have to make sure that these parents who voted that millage in, because of their children now, you must let them know immediately. You cannot wait until 2 weeks from now.
Right.
You're gonna have to get that notice out and then something out every other week explaining why we have to condition people when it comes to their money and change it. They have to be aware. If you're not aware of it, then you're gonna have a problem on your hands. So I would suggest, as a citizen, that you do it immediately, then they are able to absorb it during the summer before they have to rush into purchasing school clothes for September. That's just a suggestion.
Go ahead,
Thank
begin
you.
with 27.
Number 27, to reduce 1 FTE administration at the high school. Total value is $131,081. Number 29, to eliminate high school transportation. So you seeing the effect of
Wait a
number
minute, you
17.
skipped 28.
Oh, sorry, guys.
It's all right.
Reduce site-based budget. Site-based budgets are a per pupil allotment that each building gets based on their pupil enrollment. If we were to cut that by 50%, the district could save $75,000.
Those budgets are for
Let me
the
tell you-
audience's
They cover
benefit.
supplies and materials, crayons, paper, they cover, I'm sorry?
No.
They cover office supplies for the office to run, and that's pretty much it. Printing, things of that nature, anything, pencils.
Paste for those that eat the
Basically,
paste.
school supplies. Textbooks if they were needed to replace them. Moving on, did I skip one? Are we going back to 29? All right. I just wanted to provide you some information, a little bit more detailed information on transportation, breaking it down to what if we just eliminated high school only? The district would save $532,602. Number 30, what if we eliminated an AM or a PM run, and that would be district-wide, $266,301. And again, we could slice this any way you'd like to. I'm just throwing out the options at you. Number 31, reduction of support service costs, and I mentioned that one already. Again, if we were to experience the savings from the reduction of support service costs that we've been talking about, there's almost $117,000 that is expended in the general fund that we could move to the food service expenses instead. So that would save $117,000 on the general fund side. Again, we can't do that now because that program is not operating in a profit. Number 32, 33, and 34 all go together. They're all related. Reconfigure our buildings, or should we say redistrict is another option, or another word. Number 33, I'm not putting values to these yet because could be a very lengthy conversation in how we see this ending and proposed. And again, depending on how that works, depending on the cost, so it's something we can put together, but we're going to need to discuss it, obviously, in the future. Number 33, elementary closures, 2014-15. Does that mean 1 or does that mean 2? And then lastly, number 34 is adjust, hold, harmless assessment. And again, I wanted to bring that to your attention because the district took the avenue early in June to remain eligible for at-risk funding. And what that means is it allows us to tax a levy that is under what we are allowed to, so that we can remain eligible for approximately this year it's about $1.3 million, but as more districts are eligible, that pot of money obviously is sliced differently. Our estimate is we're going to get about $1.2 million. Right now, those funds, primarily, we use them for summer school. Primarily, they're used for reduced class size. And what that means is the requirement is that the class size cannot go over 17 or 18 students. So in a building, any of our elementary buildings, you'll see at-risk students in classrooms, but the class size is lower. If we were to go in the other direction and put that levy back onto the community, the taxpayers, it would allow us to increase those class sizes and truly get maximum class size across the district, which would assist us in closing an elementary building.
And what would be
That
that
makes sense?
maximum class size?
It will.
Well, what would be the maximum class size?
Depending on what grade level, it's 33 or 35.
Okay,
The early levels are
but now,
33.
correct me if I'm wrong, if we do that, don't we have to pay additional money, to the teachers,
Overages,
Yeah.
they're in their contract, there is a provision that they
And
receive
what is,
overages.
now, explain that one to me, because I know we have some of that now going on, but,
We don't have a lot.
okay, but is it a dollar per
It's
student?
$1 per student per day that the teacher has over what the contract class size is.
So if they have 7 students a day, it's $7 a day?
Correct.
It's not $1 an hour per student?
It works differently for.
Because I thought when I read the contract,
Yeah, it
I
works
thought I
differently
saw
for secondary.
$1 a student times an hour and some other stuff, so is it like if he or she has 33 kids and that's 7 kids more, that's $7 an hour, could that be $35 a day times 5 days a week times 36 weeks of school that we're paying more? So if we have all these extended class sizes, that's more money coming in. And then my question is now, I guess, how much is that going on right now that we're paying right now? That, you know, if we have a class size of 33 and then one class has a class size of 22, why aren't we moving those 3 or 4 kids over? Because I know when I had my problem at week school, Mr. Weiss said, "Ooh, better be quiet because we're gonna have more kids want to move their kids out, you know, to another room." Or no, I said, I don't care. The kids should be first, not you care one class has got 32 and there's another class that had 24 and he's worried about that class size. So who's worried about the class size? The teacher, because they don't want to lose that $1 an hour? Or, you know what I'm saying? So get other cash going out.
And as we look at that and reconfigure, that would be obviously something that we would consider in the costs.
What is the contract size, class size for the
It all
teachers?
varies between first, second grade, third, or fourth grade. It has different numbers, like 23, 25, 25, 28. There's different ones for different class levels. You gotta look at the contract.
Right. 33 is 33 for the lower elementary, 35 for secondary, upper elementary.
But if you close elementary school, every class size is gonna be 33.
Right.
And I can't see where you're saving money then if you're dishing out, you know, find out that's an hourly or.
And not to mention it affects kids.
My other, kind of to piggyback off of his, is then compare that to how much would it cost us to bring another teacher in to have a class to accommodate for the overages, so we're not paying for the overages, because I think that that's how you make the determination on whether or not we, you know, fill those classes past capacity versus bringing in another teacher to have a class of 12 kids, because there's overages. So it's better to divvy them up amongst the other teachers and pay that overage in comparison to paying them for you know, a class that's way under level.
Right.
So, you know, that would be something I would like to see as well.
Well, that's already going on, though.
Okay.
I mean, and one of the difficulties of that, and sometimes it's hard when you're looking at just student population on a piece of paper, you have to remember that you've got 4 elementary schools. I'm just going to use elementary as an example. So at Rommel, you have a 3rd grade classroom. You have 2 sections. Okay, there's 50 kids. I can't have just one teacher because that would be way over contract and obviously not good for kids too. So I have to have 2 teachers. So I took those 2 teachers. I got to pay 2 full-time teachers for 25 and 25. Where the 31A money, and I'm not sure if this needs any better explanation, was coming in, was it was offsetting. We still have to pay 2 teachers. So 2 teachers coming out of general fund, I'll just say, you know, $180,000 total cost. Okay, so what we were able to do with that scenario, that 3rd grade, we were able to go down to 17 on 1, which allowed us to take half of that, $80,000, out of general fund expenditures and put it onto 31A. If we give up the 31A money, understand, we still got to have 2 teachers coming out of general fund now for both of them. But if we had condensed our schools into a smaller number of schools, we would have less potential for that possibility to occur. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, in a perfect world, we'd have all of our elementary kids in one building. Then we can maximize every single class size because we'd have, you know, 5 first grades all at
Yeah, but you could almost do that if you had one building K through 1 and 2 through 3 and 4 through 5.
We
That
talked
way,
about that.
all of those
Well,
kids
that
are
was
in
kinda
there. That way you can
redesigned.
take
Yep,
off
this year.
402 and
Yeah, that
distribute them
is.
times.
Yeah,
That
the
was
only
all
problem is
talked
that's
about.
not
Yeah,
cost
talked
savings.
About that at
That is
redesign.
something.
Yeah, but
So-
where'd all that redesign talk go?
So-
Well, it was determined that that wasn't,
So
it
one of
wasn't gonna
the
save any money.
one of the big obstacles to that, John, was it's hard for me to get my head around these sometimes, but if you had all your first graders at Rommel, you would have to now take that bus and go and pick up every
whole
first grader all around. So
Yeah,
it
Romulus
oftentimes
has
it's
the
the
airplane, you're
transportation.
gonna drive around it, not through it.
Which could be increased fuel costs.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think that was the factor.
That was the big factor. It was
breaker.
economics.
And one of the things I just like to insert that I don't want us to lose sight of when we're talking about the reduced class size, That's a strategy. That's a strategy that we use to help support those students who really need some more intensive help. So, you know, it's been a side product for us that it's helped in those other ways.
Right.
But it's truly an intervention that is designed to help meet the needs of students who need that. And we have, you know, coming in every day, new documentation and support that those reduced class sizes are making a difference in our students' performance. So I don't ever want us to lose sight of that, you know, when we talk about the reduced class sizes. That is what its purpose is for.
But has it really affected our AYPs
Yes,
that greatly?
yes, and we'll
So
be
you
able
can see the difference between the one class and the other class?
Yes, and we'll be able to share out some of that information a little bit later. There's some information that's out that's currently embargoed that I'll be able to release, you know, later, that will show some of the benefits and some of the buildings where we've had that.
Well, that
It's
doesn't
been
seem fair to the
impacted.
kids stuck in the bigger classes then.
Well, and that's one of the difficult things. It really is. So as we're having that conversation, but you know, in all of this, I don't ever want us to lose sight that that is an intervention for students, and it is proving to be very productive on the part of our kids. And at a later date, I'm going to be bringing some very
Which that's the
exciting
whole
numbers
purpose
to
of that
you.
funding.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
Can you interject real quick, and so that is not remiss, is that the other thing that we're able to do with that 31A money is the CIAs. Could you explain that? Because she just brought up the class size
Right.
of the bigger class. And so the CIA does what? And
They're-
could you tell them what the CIA
I was gonna
is,
say,
what they do?
you wanna tell them what
Yeah,
a
'cause
CIA
that-
is.
yeah, not government.
They're core instructional assistants, and what we're able to do with that money is, in some of those classes where they're larger, you know, numbers, we're able to put another instructional entity there so that we still have a lower pupil-teacher ratio. So they're in there to help give some assistance in some of those classes that are larger.
But we're gonna still pay that perk, correct? Even though that teacher aid's in there, that CI.
Overages?
Yeah. So, I don't think it's an issue of the 31A, it's the issue of the overclass to pay the additional funding out. I thought that's what we're here to talk about, is try to save in money. I don't think the lower
I was-
class
well, I was
size.
just
Yeah,
addressing
yeah,
what
the
sh-
lower
what her
class
question-
size,
what
I
she
like the lower
said.
classes, it's better for the
Yeah.
student.
Right.
You know, but, so, I mean, the whole thing, I mean, but when you put the CIA in the classroom, that teacher's still getting a perk, the teacher was 33 kids, and then obviously their days being less, because they're getting help,
They're getting
but they're still getting that perk
And if we
of that raise.
And,
did go for the whole
they're,
harmless.
the CIAs are divided up. So one teacher doesn't have a CIA necessarily all day long. They have an amount of time where they're there to provide that support. So there will be some of that time when the teacher will still be the primary person responsible for everybody in the instruction.
Or sometimes the CIA is running a class without the teacher in it at all.
Well, kind of like
Oh,
this,
yeah, you can say, yeah,
Well, no,
happened.
but yeah,
Wait for weeks.
but any of them that would do that would be qualified, so it'd be like having a
Right.
sub almost.
Could we kind of
But
talk
then
about?
isn't there a point where when they're running a class, it comes out of our general fund or budget?
I'm sorry, John, I
I
wasn't.
mean, if the CIA is running a class as a teacher, does that come out of a different pay thing?
Well, if there's enough
Depends on
funds
the
in at risk, it can be.
Right, it
could
depends
be-
on the
So it
period.
comes out of our budget then, instead of that grant money, right? Or the 31, or 31A
Depends on the
money?
period of time.
Exactly.
For the whole harmless assessment, I guess the question is, what is I know the formula, are we out of formula for that?
We are not.
Okay,
We are held to, again, $649.63 per student. That's the max that we can collect. So either avenue you go, if you were to take that $649, it's either going to go 100% to a tax levy, or let's say the equivalent of $200 is what we can gain, what the value per student is for $1,200,000 or $1,300,000 of at-risk funding. Okay, so you take your at-risk funding, whatever's
And
left
deduct
over.
it.
Mhm. is what your taxpayers will pay on their levy. But we are capped.
You get it?
That's, yeah. So we wouldn't be able to collect more to
No.
help
No.
pay
No.
for
No,
No,
buses?
no.
no.
We are capped. We are capped. The discussion we were having, or that we've had, about a month ago, was what source, who's going to pay it? Is it going to be all the burden of the community and the taxpayers? Or are we going to take our option to be eligible for at-risk and have some of it paid for by at-risk funding from the state of Michigan, and the remaining balance paid for our community? And the choice the district made, or the Board of Education, was to, keep taxes as low as possible. Knowing, again, I can't say it enough, it's all dependent upon student enrollment and property tax values, and those things do change throughout the year. We try to keep a really good pulse. I mean, September is a good indication, and then property taxes, values can change throughout the whole year. But we do our best to kind of underestimate that a little bit, just to make sure that we preserve our eligibility. But in terms of what we're able to do, we're capped out.
Now, did we already get, like, the county send us the delinquent taxes?
Yes, we received that last week. It was July 8th. It was right when I came back from the holiday.
So does
We
that
did
help
get
our
that.
budget?
No. No, we assume we're getting that.
Oh,
What that is that the money that's not collected by the city for real property taxes, that's turned over to the county, and then the county makes good on all those delinquent taxes. So for example, if we are owed $600,000 in delinquent taxes for real property only, personal property is different, real property that's transferred over to the county actually sells bonds to pay for that so that they can make the district whole, which is a good thing, because otherwise we would be sitting and
Till they
waiting for
change that.
$600,000 of delinquent taxes. Personal property, the city still keeps, and we continue to get any personal property delinquent taxes paid to them, to us, 2 times a month, around the 15th and the end of the month. But your real dollars are real property. That's the end of the list.
Did the administration have some questions that they wanted to address that had been submitted to them? Go ahead, you had a question?
Yeah. Can you just, again, tell me what the difference,
Yes.
what A, B, and C is again?
Well, see,
Just so I can write
yep.
my note down.
A is the budgeted reduction cost that the board approved on June 24th.
So these are approved already?
Yes. B are those that are actually realized. And I'm going to go back and put it in terms of the deficit elimination plan. If I was required to submit that today, we would still have almost $2 million to work toward. Because some of the savings that we budgeted for, we have not realized and experienced in black and white.
So B is actually realized?
Yes, this is exactly where we sit today, because we have some outstanding issues, as you know,
Right.
in terms of savings.
Except for number 15.
Let's see. Number 15 is that outstanding issue. You budgeted for a reduction within your budget of
Right.
costs.
But
The
you were
question
saying
is, how are we going to experience it?
Right.
And then C are the options to eliminate, again, and C assumes that the savings of the $3 million of reduction of support costs come to fruition. C are the items that you then would move towards to get that additional $2.4 million. Again, the last 3, have a lot of work to be done. We just got into discussion tonight. We probably spent 20 minutes on it, so you can imagine how lengthy that can be. And of course, that's something that we have to make sure we communicate to our public as soon as we know something.
And there is one other item that can be added to there. We're talking about adjusting the hold harmless levy. I don't know, and the business office would have to run the actual numbers. We already levy the maximum voter approved sinking fund of 0.75 mils, but there may be some additional dollars that we currently spend for the maintenance and operations of our buildings that can be transferred back to sinking fund if the revenue was there. So we may want to consider an enhancement request with the voters for sinking fund. I know it's not a popular thing to think about, but again, we have to put all options on the table. And if
And
there's
as
an
a
opportunity
reminder-
for us to seek another few pennies, then we may have to do that.
And the way that would work is currently, the majority of the repairs and maintenance costs that would be part of the custodial maintenance operations budget, those can legitimately be paid for from sinking fund, because sinking fund can only be used for repair and maintenance of buildings. No buses, no labor, so the work that would even go to repair and maintenance is not acceptable if it's done by our staff. But the problem is, as you know, we have aging. I just found out today our custodians are working in this heat at Hale Creek, challenging on to get the job done because a chiller went out. So, you know, the chillers are aging. Over the last year, we've replaced 3 of them. So that's going to be very important. The problem is, you know, the only information we have to go on about our infrastructure is the facility study. And so we may have to get that out and go through that for the items that we haven't done. And at this point, I'd suggest those types of items, although parking lots are very important, it's a bit more important, I think, to have the students inside the building comfortably.
If we have a school that is not being utilized right now, Mount Pleasant, how can we take the boilers and
And some of that we have done. We've been able to take parts out of it, and if there's an equivalent boiler system or infrastructure, we've been able to take parts out. But eventually, it's going to be not salvageable anymore. But we are doing that, bit by bit. That's our first attempt, and obviously, if the equipment or the repair items are not there, then obviously we have to go out and purchase them. Same with the infrastructure. Unfortunately, I mean, we've removed doors. We're trying to salvage as much as we can.
Have we had any hits on our property?
Merriman Elementary, it's probably been a good 4 weeks since I've heard from the real estate agent, but we did have an individual come through that was interested in the property and the building. And the last I spoke with them, I was able to they requested an operational expense, so what the building typically experiences in utility costs, things of that nature. And I did share that with them, and I have not heard back.
Okay. Thank you.
The other buildings, no. And pieces of, just parcels of land, I have not.
Did you have some board members submitted questions or whatever that you wanted to?
So, over the course of the last day or two, there's been quite a few questions that have come into my office, Sherry's office, and Dr. Daniel's office. So we thought we had all of you here together tonight, so we would answer some of these questions. I'm going to start with one. I would like to know the penalty amount that it would be to reopen administration and teachers' contracts due to our deficit and decrease salary amounts again. The answer to that question is...
Rebecca, excuse me, can we wait till Danielle comes back?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she is. Only because everybody should hear the same thing.
Right, I'm sorry, I didn't notice that she had gotten up.
Ms. Sherry?
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell me when we would be able to get any numbers on the items 32 through 34, the reconfiguring of the buildings
again,
and elementary
I mean, that's
closures
and the
adjusting the
administration...
hold harmless and all of
sorry, I
that?
keep cutting you off.
That's okay.
The administration can come up with a recommendation. But, I'm not sure if that's something, it needs board approval. As you know, most of these kinds of items, we actually typically try to have a redesign where we try to involve the community, students. So I'm not sure. We could recommend something, but I'm not sure it would be something that you're willing to live with.
When you say recommend, what does that
Our best
consist of?
guess is what's best for this district and its students.
So would you be able to give actual figures for that?
Yes.
Could you,
Yeah.
do I need to
Well,
request that to you right now?
no,
Or would you like it
I
in
think-
writing, or what would you
I mean,
like?
if that's the board's pleasure, we can get working on
Yeah.
something.
What she's saying is that because it's such a vast area, the administration, and I'm not
That's
trying to
okay.
put words in their mouths, but they may say, close Smith Elementary, and I purposely used Smith because we don't
Right.
have a Smith. We may not find that palatable.
Right.
The worst case scenario is the administration makes a recommendation that the public doesn't find palatable. So we usually go through like a redesign or something where we involve different key groups and we discuss, okay, here are some different options, let's talk about all the different options, and then a plan is created. And that's a several month process. So we can, the numbers are clear that if we close an elementary school, the savings are roughly $250,000.
Operational expenditures?
Operationally costs.
The time and effort for cleaning the building, the utilities, and administration, actually, is anywhere between $250,000 to $300,000 in elementary. When you're looking at a middle school, you're talking probably $600,000. That I have. That is true.
That's what I asked for the other day.
What the part that's difficult is figuring out how many classrooms, how many teachers we need. So because we close the building doesn't necessarily mean if there's 10 teachers there that we actually are going to reduce the staff by 10.
Right.
Because those students
You
still
don't
have to
know how
be in a
many students
classroom.
are gonna show up.
Right, that's the difficult part.
understandable.
Okay.
Okay, you can go back to the questions now.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the first question we'll address is, I would like to know the penalty amount that it would be to reopen administration and teachers' contracts due to our deficit and decrease salary amounts again. The answer to that question is that with the teachers and the administrators in RAZA, we are currently in a collectively bargained agreement. The Board of Education ratified into an approval 3/18/13 for the teachers and 5/20/13 for the administrators. And those contracts go through 8/15/2016 and 6/30/2016, respectively. What that means is that we have agreed upon the terms and conditions, including the wages, of those bargaining agreements for the next 3 years. There is, so we cannot reopen those contracts without the union agreeing to do so, and they are under no obligation to agree to do so. There is, in all of these contracts that we've ratified, that was ratified at this table, wage reopeners. So the agreement that the union has with the Board of Education is that each year we're going to look at wages. They've guaranteed that the board will pay no more than they have in the first year of the contract. So we don't start back from scratch again, if you will. So those concessions stay in there, but we agree to open up and have conversations about it. In that scenario, there's no obligation for them to come to an agreement for additional wage concessions. But the two groups, of course, that I'm talking about here are partners in our instructional programming. And they have. I hope that answers your question. The second one, I think, I'm not sure if Sherry.
You can address that. The question was, I would also like to know what the penalty amount that Mr. Weiss had to pay for breaking his contract with Romulus Community School District, and there wasn't a penalty.
There wasn't one.
No. He was paid for the contracted services that were provided in his contract up to the date that he was employed with us.
Yeah, and theoretically, he didn't break his contract. His contract provided for him to retire at any time.
Okay.
I'm glad he did when he did.
Next question. And Sherry, you might have to answer this one too, I'm sorry. Okay. Also, is it a cost savings to use a payroll company other than our people?
Okay. That is something we've investigated previously when we've had other budget reduction lists. And due to the fact that we have a array of different contracts with different provisions, with different deductions, with different insurance, it's very difficult to get that to a company and save money. And that information came from my sources, where one was at RISA, the director of, actually he's the assistant superintendent of business services there, and then in talking with other districts.
Okay, next one. This is a long one, and bear with me on this one, because I was trying to answer it, and I'm not sure if I hit the mark on it, but I hope I did. The question was, to clarify, dispel any rumors about a 10% pay increase for admin, et cetera, can I have the past 2 to 3 years, or since we have been pushing concessions, to see what each of those people made, central office and administration, no names, just person, 1, 2, et cetera, or position? Okay, I got that one early enough that I was able to do some homework on it and get you some real numbers, because I was really interested, I was intrigued about the rumor that there was a 10% pay increase. So I wanted to show you on this document that I'm handing out. This actually answers a couple of questions, so we're going to go down it one at a time. I went back to 2010-11 because our concessions began at that point in time at the end of those contracts. So I did not tie any names. It makes it a little difficult in central office because obviously there's just one of us in each of these positions. But there have been some staff changes during this period of time. So I wanted you to have, and these are gross wages. So please don't misunderstand. These aren't total cost of ownership savings. The question was wages. So this is what these individuals took home in their paycheck. You know, this is what they were paid on contract in 2010-11 and what they're being paid for 2013-14. So you can kind of scroll down and see, you know, I'm just going to pick on myself here. Director of Human Resources. In 2010-11, my contract was for $106,050. My contract for 2013-14 is $93,536. Very grateful dollars. Okay. I wanted to also just talk very briefly. You know, down at the very bottom of that section, I totaled it because I wanted you to see the cost in 2010-11. The board was incurring in wages for all central office staff. It was $1,014,000. Thank you. 528. 2013-14, that would be $792,000. That's a 22% wage reduction, but I don't want you to jump up and down and say, oh my gosh, they took 22%. We didn't. That's including the reduction of the director of technology. On average, the individual average was anywhere from a 10 to 15% salary reduction, wage reduction. There's also additional cost of ownership reductions, but we're just addressing wages right now. Did the same thing for you with RAZA. I wanted you to see what the contractual gross wages were in 10-11. I'll use the athletic director only because he's the first one on the list. In 2010-11, his wage was $96,223. In 2013-14, his wage is $84,257. That's a 12% wage reduction. There's also additional contract concessions that were part of the overall collectively bargained agreement, including health care, sick days, and work year.
And furloughs.
Yes. Now, there was another part of that question, and this one was interesting to me too, but I'm glad that it came out because it can get confusing. When the teachers gave up the step increase, did any come back? And what I took that to mean was, did the teachers get step increases? And I want to go back to the agreement that we ratified back in March. So I draw you to this last little section where it says teachers. There's basically three things on they're big ticket items, three things that the teachers did. They continued with their furlough and sick bank savings, and that was a 4% savings to overall cost of ownership savings to the district. They then said, you know, we haven't had steps in multiple years, and I don't need to go into the negotiation language on that, but we said we got to do something to get our folks to ratify. This is. So we said, can we give them a half a step in year one and then freeze it again for 3 years and take an 11% wage concession? And that met the parameters of the Board of Education, which was a 14% cost of ownership savings. So that's kind of where that, they did get a half a step, but instead of doing the 10% wage concession, they said, give us a half a step, freeze it, and then we'll take an 11% salary concession across the board for the next 3 years. So I hope that answers that question.
I had one more question presented to me, and that was, how much do we pay RESA, our intermediate school district, for contracted services? And it's approximately $86,000. We pay $50,000 for technology support services in the absence of a network specialist. And then $36,000 for a software program that provides us with Polyplot, financial accounting systems, pupil accounting, Zangle, all the things that the district uses really to operate behind the scenes with software programs. So the total is $86,000.
The Zangle Parent Connect that
It does.
3,000 parents and families can use.
Yes. And then the only other thing we typically pay RESA for is professional development. And most of that is through our grant programs. They provide professional development for our teachers.
Question. Director of Curriculum, it looks like they still show something in the budget, but we originally did that because of the middle school grant. Now we have no money for books or stuff. Why are we keeping money for a director there?
I reported what the board had approved in for the 13-14 budget. If it's the board's pleasure to take curriculum director out, we can add that to the list. We don't have that position filled right now.
Right.
I mean, I just want to make that clear. but
Right,
we
so
do.
I'm just wondering if we can tell the state that that's, 90,000 is 90,000. When you add in the taxes, payroll taxes and the
Sure.
retirement.
Oh,
and
no,
benefits.
it would have a different value.
Right.
Yeah,
If
the
it's the
board-
board's
yeah,
pleasure, we'll add
The board
it.
would have to take action, but the board took action vis-à-vis hiring the new superintendent. The questions were asked during the negotiation process, whether the two positions were to remain combined or not. And the board said, no, they were not to remain combined. So that's why the salary offer was made the way it was, and that's why the contract is worded the way it is. So the board has acted. The board can always reverse that action, but as of right now, the direction was for the district to leave that in the budget, and that was prepared in the budget.
But right now, we're looking at cutting where we have to cut.
I agree,
It's not a
I agree,
necessity.
but I'm just pointing
Right,
out that.
So I'm just
that
saying that's something that could
we
be added
we
to the
did
list.
weigh in on that, so I just don't want anyone to think that we didn't weigh in on it.
Right, I'm just saying that that's something we could add to the list.
I have a,
Ms. Pack. Ms. Pack, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
no, go ahead.
I just had I'm sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, you're good. Go
I
ahead.
apologize.
It's all good.
We're all thinking at the same time.
Yeah, I was just looking at what you wrote down. You said, for the human resource, you had picked on yourself. It
Yep.
was $93,536, right?
That's this year's wages.
Okay, that's just wages. That's not including your Medicare and everything
Oh,
else,
no, no,
right?
no.
None of
Okay.
these include that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I was going to make sure I gave all of you a copy of what I got in my hand
Mm-hmm.
here from a citizen. I wanted to make sure I got it to you. I should have got here early enough to pass it to you so you could see it with this, but I will make sure you get a copy of this, as well as everybody on that side, too.
Oh,
And then-
if you'd like to hand it
Let
out
us,
now.
I was gonna say, let us take a look at it. We
Yeah, this
might
is,
know what it's
something
referring
that I
to.
I
had
would just like to
actually
make
got-
a comment on that. Through transparency on our website, and I don't know where this information came, but I just wanted to remind the Board of Education, we're required that if a total compensation package goes over $100,000, okay, I should say, a salary goes over $100,000, the district is required to post that, all of those positions, not by name, but by the position, the
Right.
title. They're required to post the salary, the FICA, the retirement, the health care, and any other costs associated with hiring that individual, which I mentioned to you a little earlier when I give you figures, all of that's there. And the other thing is, those numbers, the way that transparency is written, they want calendar year. In addition, it's Medicare wages, and there are some things that are included in Medicare wages that aren't true salaries. For example, if an individual is getting life insurance beyond a certain amount because of their contract provisions, that amount is added to their Medicare wages, but it's actually taken out as a deduction, so they're not getting any money for that. But I just want you to understand some of the numbers that are in transparency, which is what we're required to report, are a little bit, I don't want to call them deceiving, but they're more than actually what an individual makes.
They're misleading.
Just please keep that in mind, because I know a lot of times people come and ask me about that, and they don't understand that that's a complete total package.
The self-worth of an employee.
Yes. The cost of owning that employee right when they walk in
The
the door.
whole
Yes.
kit caboodle.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
what I got here. I got the retirement, the benefits,
Yes.
the FICA,
Yes.
and then the total compensation. So I'm looking at what you said, and I'm like, okay, this is from 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, this has got to be what the citizen was talking
Yeah.
about.
And let me-
So I wanted to make sure I gave everybody a copy of this so that you could see it as well, too. So therefore, next time we have a citizen that comes up that is saying, you'll have the information that they're seeing online.
And then,
And
Because
she'll,
that's what they
I wanna
have.
and
ask
we'll,
one
we'll
more-
try and
I
have
wanna
Sherry
make
give
one
the
more
same
comment.
explanation too.
again, transparency says the calendar wages and all the benefits and health.
January.
But if you were to, if there's a concession, for example, our fiscal year goes from July through June. So what you would see for 2012 would be, of 6 months of one fiscal year. And if they took a salary concession, you're only going to see 6 months worth of that concession in that number. Okay? So again, it looks overstated because the way it's reported is not actually how our budget works.
Thank you.
They go by
But I
ca-
appreciate if you can like put that online somehow and
what?
explain it to the citizens, because the citizens, the way they're looking at it, they're looking at the medical and wages here.
Good
And I'm just
point.
gonna say, just bring this out to you, where it says $98,567. And then they go all the way to total compensation after adding on retirement benefits, and FICA, and they come with a total compensation of $148,000.
Good point.
Okay, that's just for
It
one.
is a
So,
good point.
you know, that's stuff that you need to, you know, you need to bring that out, because
And
they
that's a
don't
good
know.
idea.
It's a
And
good
maybe
point, but
on
let
the,
me-
maybe on the homepage, it can't be in the transparency.
Because they're very specific with the wording and what's there. I can't mess with it. I have to follow
But we
strict
could put an
guidelines.
informational
We could.
box on our homepage.
We could.
That's a good idea, Tamika.
Sure.
Write
I
that
give
date
this to
down,
you?
please.
Right.
Okay, write today down.
You got two.
Right.
Sometimes we're taking
You
in
have
factors
two.
such as so much scoreboard over there, or something like that.
Well, we could do that too, but I think
explain.
explaining,
Explain.
if they click on
This
the
is a combined
transparency
year,
link, this
part
is
of
the
year
This is
information.
what
with
it means.
concessions and part without.
This is what it means.
Plus the
Perfect.
fact that it's Medicare wages, you know,
Right.
Right.
it's not true
My
wages
Medicare
that
measures is
are
not in my paycheck, I can tell you.
in your paycheck.
Because my Medicare wages
No.
is
Well,
not
when
in
you
my
file your
paycheck.
taxes,
Right.
what's the highest box on your W-2? Medicare wages.
Yep.
And it's not what you
Like I said, I
Not
It
know.
what
ain't,
your-
it ain't what you get in your
The
check.
government's gonna get their
Exactly.
taxes, right?
Were there
Okay,
any
I-
other
I have-
questions?
Actually, I'm not done. Sorry. So I had another question that came from a board member. There was, the question was, how many administrators did we have 5 or 6 years ago, and how many do we have now? And it was framed around, I'm getting a lot of feedback that this district has not cut from the top. So the answer that I have, and I don't have anything to show you, and I'm embarrassed to I was like frantically writing. I went back to 06, 07, I went back to 6 years ago, because that's just the contract that I was able to pull up. In 2006-07, district-wide, including central office administration, we had 26 administrators. In 2012-13, we have 18. It's 31% less than we did 6 years ago, and I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Board members, do you have any other questions about
Answer my
budget
question.
stuff right now? Obviously, we're gonna need to, and I don't, you know, I mean, I certainly don't wanna spring things and shoot them from the hip, but I think maybe on Monday's agenda, we may want to have a topic sheet that will authorize the administration to form a redesign committee to look at possible reconfiguration of our buildings. I think that that's going to be wise to get that process started as soon as the school year starts. I don't know how board members feel about that, but I think we need to start gathering data and input.
Yeah, and I think that would be helpful for the plan as well. To
Yeah.
show them that you are headed
That
in
we're
that
drop dead
direction.
serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it does
And to
take
have it
several months.
formally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a several, you know, with the exception of Ms. Bowles, and I'm not picking on Ms. Bowles, but, you know, the board's been through these committees before, and, you know, it will take probably a good, healthy 3 or 4 months. So I think if board members are okay with that, please be prepared for that to be on Monday's agenda. We okay with that? With that, our next item on the agenda is communications and expressions from the public. I know we have a small audience here, but if you would like to address the Board of Education, we ask that you complete the public participation form and bring it to the front of the room. Our policy provides that speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak during public comments portion of the agenda. The Board of Education acknowledges that we are dealing with very sensitive and emotional issues, and therefore wishes to remind all parties that personal attacks, name-calling, and other disruptive behavior will not be allowed. With that, the first speaker is Mr. Charles Miller. You want to use the microphone, please, if it's around there? Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have some questions in regards to some of the situation has to do with this debt plan. And please bear with me when I get, I have a numerous amount of them. When I get beyond the allotted time, just go ahead and tell me. But so what I'll do is I'll start with the most sensitive ones to begin with. If the district was to dissolve, as was spoken of earlier. If the district was to dissolve and was be folded into another district, what happens to the pensions? That's been a question that's been asked to me all week. Where are the pensions in the dissolvement or the dissolution of this district?
So if the employee is not an employee of the public retirement system for Michigan employees, their retirement can be deferred at that time. But if they're not working for another district, they cannot contribute. So if they're not offered a position with another district in that transition, then again, they're not eligible until they meet the eligibility requirements, which is 10 years and 60.
But they would not lose their pension.
They will not unless they pull out their portion that they've contributed to by themselves.
And those former retirees will continue to receive their pension?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you kindly. Let's see. If the district is dissolved, what becomes with the taxes? And you had alluded to that. But those taxes will be required to pay the district back for its losses, correct? Like if we're in debt, exactly how much? What is the real figure? Because it continues to be fluid. What is the real figure on the debt elimination plan value?
About $8.6 million.
$8.6 million.
That's where we started at way back in January and March.
At the dissolution of the district, we still have to pay that $8.6 million back, correct?
I'm not sure of the answer to that.
Well, actually, I
When
don't
you
know
said
about
debt,
that. What I was talking
retirement.
about, what I was referring to, was the bonded debt, which
Right.
that's what, approaching about $24 million right now. And the way the legislation is right now that was approved is you know, us local taxpayers would continue to pay whatever levies are in place to make those bonds whole. But as far as payless paydays or things of that nature, if they're not secured by a bond,
They're payless.
it would be a bankruptcy kind of situation.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
During those 2 years of the debt elimination plan, referred to as the debt, those students coming from, say, the dissolved Inkster School District, will we receive full state funding for their coming to our district, or will a portion of that be kept back to pay for the dissolvement of the Inkster school system?
Again, what would happen, two things. The Inkster community would keep paying their local taxes, that would go to their system. If we get the students, they would count under our enrollment counts, but for the first, I believe it's 3, if it's not 4, please don't quote me, I'm not sure which of the two. I don't want to call it a bonus, but we would get an increase of 10% of that foundation amount to help us transition the new students in here, because they may need additional services, additional interventions. We may need to increase staff temporarily, but we would get full funding for them, yes.
We'll get full funding.
Yes.
That's a rumor that's going around, and I'm glad you have resolved that,
I just
because...
said another thing to that too, though. My question was, like Dr. Daniels, didn't Chris Wygant from the county though, isn't he holding up that dissolution for right now? I mean, isn't he trying to?
He's not really-
There's a possibility we won't even receive those.
That's correct.
He's not the one who's holding it up. Right now, what they're still waiting on, the Department of Education, Lansing, Superintendent Flanagan and Andy Dillon from the Treasurer's Office, they are the ones who must finally say, we are going to,
Dissolve.
to dissolve, and then it is either Wayne County or the Department of Ed who will do the formal. But then if it's formally decided and the final decision, and they are having a hearing tomorrow in Lansing, if it's formally decided that that is what's going to happen, then the next steps will be to determine how they're going to divide the district up and what that's going to look like, and then where the students will go. But officially, we're still not at that point yet. And the likelihood that it will happen is probably pretty high, but it's not a given yet.
Right.
The fat lady didn't sing yet,
Right.
so. But at the point when that happens, then I'm pretty sure that our county superintendent will look into being one who wants to be instrumental because he's closest to the situation and he can help determine, you know, kind of what will be best for the districts that he serves, including the district being dissolved.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I didn't mean to
Can I
interrupt you.
piggyback off Mr.
Sorry.
Miller since we're on his time?
Well, as long as we're being civil, we
I'm
can. we
I'm
can
on your
talk.
time.
Is,
Good. When you're talking, it's your time.
Is there other perks, since he's talking about the Inkster, you know, FTEs and stuff, of getting their buses too? And, I mean, if we're getting their students, are we allowed to any properties like buildings or anything going to our city, in fact?
If they divide it up.
I mean, can we get
what-
supplies
And I think that Mr. McLaughlin shared that any of their facilities that would be within the bounds of the portions, they would come to the district.
We would be in receivership of those.
But that may,
But,
that
right.
may be a bad thing. We don't know the condition, because we don't know the
Well,
geographic
yeah.
area they'll give us. We
And
don't
what
know
it
the
would be.
condition of the
Right,
building.
yeah.
I don't know that Inkster still owns buses.
They don't.
Yeah, because if you drive by their bus yard, there's not a bus there. You know, so that could be a bad
But
thing.
supplies, I mean,
But-
we talk about supply
could be.
budgets
And I want to,
If it hasn't all been pilfered.
right.
well, and I want to share with all of you, this, you know, when Ms. Peck was talking about this is a new ball game, when we were talking about the other pieces, they're still writing this as we go along.
Mhm.
Okay? So where we are today, it might look different by the time we get to tomorrow. So one of the things that, you know, I could recommend is that if you've got some questions like that, jot them down for us so that when I get to the meeting where, you know, if it really happens, I can say, well, these are some of the questions that we've got, you know, and then we can
Yeah,
get the
it's-
answers back to you.
It's unfortunate that you're looking at doing something with a document that is fluid. It
Yes,
changes as the days go by.
Welcome to
which-
our life.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
Can I
it-
just
One-
ask one question,
Sure.
kind of on your subject, is with that student foundation though, if they come to our district, what we assess for our hold harmless, they
They don't pay.
don't pay.
No.
So technically, we're just getting what the state funds.
That's correct.
Right.
And so we'll be, for lack of a better word, in a deficit for the additional that we have to make up because our students, so I'll just throw some figures out there. If the student foundation is $6,000 and if we educate ours at 8, then we're at a $2,000 deficit
Well,
per
and here-
student. Minus, well,
Minus the
10%,
transition.
the transition.
But, and here's why I say, you know, this may not be, I'll use somebody's phrase from a previous meeting, this may not be the golden goose, because you are correct that we would not get the hold harmless from their taxpayers. However,
Our
we're allowed to levy $649 a student.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
So,
Right.
our taxpayers,
Are gonna
if
pay.
the board took that route, would absolutely pay a higher tax because we're servicing more students, therefore, ergo,
That
we can
formula.
collect more of that money,
And
so,
that's your
Yeah, we,
referral
the
to
state.
adjusting the
Actually,
whole
the state.
harmless.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, no,
That's a-
no, that's different, the adjusting.
The whole harmless is fixed.
Well, it is, but it's not. What she, I know, I just made no sense.
It's an oxymoron.
I supported it before I was against it. Now that's no, what we did last year with the hold harmless is we transferred part of the responsibility of that levy to the state by qualifying for 31A money or at-risk money.
Grant money.
And we continued to choose to do that. But the carrot at the end of that rope is we have to meet certain class size requirements to use
To do
that
that.
money for that purpose. The decision that we have before us is, do we take away that carrot, tell the state, keep their money, and assess it locally?
And raise it to the citizens.
Which would double, it would just about double your, right now, we're gonna levy just over 1 mills, it would take it to just over 2.
You folks are in a very complicated situation. People need to understand that.
Thank you.
Some of us do and some of us don't. But the one last question,
Yes, sir.
which to me is the big elephant in the room, what is the value, because of the circumstances surrounding the elimination of both the transportation, the food handlers, the janitorial, which would be devastating to our community. What is the value of the health care for those folks?
I
I don't have that in
The,
front of
the
me.
the total value, you mean, what does it cost the district to provide health care to all of
For
those
All
members?
of those that are in-
those specific entities, yes.
Um,
Because that would be eliminated, which would affect the bottom line for the debt elimination.
Well, that's
plan.
kind
Oh,
of,
that was
that's
factored
kind of
in.
factored into why we're
Yeah.
projecting between, actually, the projection is now almost 4 million if
Okay.
we proceed with all 4 groups. The projection is the district would save almost $4 million.
$4 million.
And you, sir,
That's what I was
you are
looking for.
absolutely correct. Most of it is healthcare and the 24% MIPSers requirement.
Right.
Exactly.
So you are absolutely correct that that's where that savings is.
In closing, do your best. People are depending on you. I would certainly hope that you are able to come up with something that would continue to keep our people working. I think it's very important. And thank you kindly. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
The next speaker is Miss Eva Webb.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Hi.
Do I have to have the mic?
Please.
Yes, please. So
They
our
gotta hear you in
viewers at
TV
home-
land.
We're taping.
Yeah.
Really?
We are taping.
You know
You're
me.
on candid camera.
Okay.
Make sure you're on top switch.
I'm on. It says power and it's green.
Tap it.
Okay.
No?
I do
She
that.
switches.
There you go.
Thanks, Bob. I was sitting back there and I was a little bit late. I had to go to my precious grandbaby's home. My brilliant grandchild. First of all, I have to say, our school district is one of the best in the state, no matter what. And I wish there were a lot of people here this evening, because it's as though people come in to complain. I don't come in to complain. I come in to give a comment and a suggestion. When you were speaking of eliminating transportation, you know, years back, kids who lived across the street from a school, or down the street from a school, or a couple of blocks from the school, they didn't have transportation. They walked. Okay? So that eliminates a lot of the fuel usage and a lot of the bus driver's time as well. Also, if you're going to combine schools, why not change the starting time for the students? Then the bus drivers can pick up, I wouldn't say kindergarten, first or second graders, but fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth graders. How come they can't ride on the same bus together? That would also save fuel and cut back on some of the bus drivers, the transportation. If you change the school hours, because some schools started, what, 7?
The high school.
The high school, then you have the junior high, and then you have the elementary. So the buses have to wait and go from the high school to go pick up the junior high. And why not just try to possibly combine, well, set a time for certain grade to attend school at the same time, get out at the same time. Instead of our buses taking, prime example, my granddaughter is in high school. Her sister will be attending 6th grade this year. Okay, a 6th grader, 3rd grader, 4th grader, etc., 7th, 8th. If there's another brother and sister, why are these kids coming home at two or three different times? It really saved, especially if it's an older brother or sister at home, it really saves for the younger kids. It may save a few dollars on a babysitter who has to be there for the 5th and 6th grader, but doesn't have to be there for the 16 or 17-year-old. But if the 17-year-old, which naturally if they are responsible, can stay there that hour with their younger siblings. You know, that's just the thought. You know, as long as you can save the money, and then you speak of the infrastructure. One more thing I noticed. For the past 6, 7 years, new parents have moved into our community. they are amazed at how well our schools are. I mean, it's like, Mrs. Webb, are these new schools? No, because we've always cared. We've had our janitorial, our custodians to care about the upkeep of our schools. But when you put out in your literature, please remind these new parents that the age of our schools, because see, a lot of them think, why do they need money for this? Or why do they need money to re-roof? Or why do they need money for the air conditioning system when the schools are new? Our schools are not new. Our schools are quite old. My daughter, oldest daughter, is 44 years old.
Oh, she gonna get you.
That's okay.
How's that possible when you're only 33?
I know, well, you know what? Adoption. But in a way, she attended Barth. Well, all of my children attended Barth Elementary. She graduated that's my high school, Glasgow. She graduated Romulus High, 1986. Now, that's a long time, but I don't think a lot of the tax-paying parents understand the age of our structures. And if you just put that
Good
in there,
point.
I'm sorry, you know, I am a stickler for things, and having been a former school board person, you have to really make things work. You have to speak in layman's terms. You have to make the people understand where the money is going and why you need the money, but also why you're cutting back. And I mean, I'm not saying those little kids should walk across the street, kindergartners or first graders, but let me tell you something. If you don't have that bus out there, you're going to make sure that that neighbor's there. Somebody's going to be there to help that child go across that street. And to me, that is a savings if you combine students. And I'm not saying the babies now, but if you can combine students on those school buses and possibly change the starting time at the schools, that's going to save a lot. And I do wish that you could find some way to keep the music, but, you know, I'm not even going to go into that. And just one more thing, redistricting. If you could get, and you would not have this room completely filled up and people being disrespectful to the board as well as to anyone else who's here. If you would take, prime example, Danielle, you take the Commons and you bring those parents in. My daughter lives in the Commons. She voted for every millage because we have two, you know, she has two daughters who are being educated in this system. You take a subdivision of parents and have them to come in and explain it to them. Then you take maybe, well, you could probably combine the farms and the commons, okay? You bring them in, and then you can take Avalon Meadows and other subdivisions, the Junction sub. Bring those parents or those caregivers, takers in, and explain this to them one-on-one per subdivision. And I think that you would really and truly have a better chance of getting those parents to understand, and they would absorb, and without all of the yelling and the accusation of, you know, what you all are doing wrong. That's just a suggestion. But you know what? We have good parents in this community. Very, very good parents. And those parents love their kids' teachers. So, you know, just consider that. And I guess my 3 minutes are up. And thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker is, well, maybe not. The next speaker is Mr. Gary Banis. Thanks, Gary.
So, good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
You guys have some very tough challenges ahead of you and some very difficult decisions, and it's going to be very challenging. Why I'm here tonight I've been associated with Romulus for 34 years now. I have seen the community, I have seen the schools grow, I have seen programs grow and change. And the past 3 years, for example, with the SIG grant, watching what has happened at our school with the SIG, the programs we've been able to put in place, how we've tried to change, how we teach the kids, work with the kids. I hope that as you make your choices and the tough decisions, you'll think about all those things and think about the programs that we've brought to our kids and to our community and how much our schools have changed and gotten better because of all those academic programs. Please try hard not to compromise that. It's so important to the kids. It's important to their future. We are getting so much recognition out there. The NEA, the U.S. Department of Education, they have taken note of what we have done, the collaborative efforts that have existed between the administration and the teachers union. And I've been to so many conferences in the past 3 years and forums that we have personally been invited to, getting calls from the U.S. Department of Education, getting calls from the NEA, getting calls from the MEA, asking, would you come and talk? Would you guys be part of a forum? How did you make this collaboration work? How did you get these changes? What are some of the successes? What are the challenges? How are you working through these things? So people on the outside are noticing what's happening here, and I want to try to keep that momentum going, keep things positive for our school, keep things positive for our students, and hopefully give them the very best possible education as they go into their future. So again, you have great employees from top to bottom. We have a great community. We have great students here, and it's some very tough times, not by anyone's choice. It's been the cards dealt to us, but we have to make the best of it, and I'm just here to say we're here to work with you, and we're here to hopefully see the very best possible schools continue. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
And I'd just like to add, there have been invitations where they paid for us to come, not them, us paying to go. So I just wanted to add that. So, the conferences that he's participated in are invitations where they foot the whole bill.
Yeah.
So we're not paying money to get out there. Exactly, yeah, so.
And
also-
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go right ahead.
I became aware, and I want to thank you and your members. I became aware through another source that one of the programs that was piloted through the SIG, or made possible through the SIG, the home visits, and I'm not sure if board members are understanding this, or I'm sorry, not understanding, aware that this is still going on. And it's not just the middle school teachers. I was contacted on Facebook from an elementary parent whose child was, the family was contacted. The teacher went to their home to check on how their summer's doing and make sure they're ready to start school. School's 6 weeks away. But these are the kind of outreach that's going on, the dedication to our children that's going on. And that's huge, because there's many districts that don't have that kind of commitment and that kind of partnership. And, I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that. Thank you, Gary.
And thank you, because that's something that is very important. There's studies out there showing that when there's more of a connection between the teachers and the home, how it does impact student achievement.
Yes, it does.
So the past 2 days, we've had teachers at the middle school trying to arrange visits for the next couple of weeks coming up. So there definitely is interest, and we're interested in seeing that continue.
And that was what I was going to say. And I know Mr. Bannis had reported back that they're getting such positive feedback. And, and I asked him if he could kind of give us and some anecdotes of some of the things that are being shared, because that's one of the things I'd like to do, is say, this people are saying, so that we can let them know, and as they're making those contacts, and it kind of goes to the point of, that one-on-one or that small group, how it's much easier to really do some good communication and get that dialogue going. So we appreciate your efforts more than you know. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to piggyback off something Ms. Webb said. Back in the old days, when we had all the schools, I think, I don't know if it's so much the school's fault or the city of Romulus, just the way it's laid out. Really, we only have one school that is compatible for kids to walk to, which is Hell Creek. You know, when I went to school, we went to Gordonier, and we had a whole subdivision on Smith Road. You know, there's 350 houses in there. And then we had between Ecorse Road and where I lived, I mean, we walked through the woods to get to school. We didn't have the bus pick us up, you know, like 28 feet from the school, which some do now. But, you know, I mean, the junior high, Wick School, it's tough to walk down Rick Road's so busy, you know. I guess if you live on Barth, can you do that? Maybe walk to that school. If you live across from the high school, I guess some students could walk because they have a traffic light. But the way the city's, you know, they've you know, tore down Beverly School, they've tore down Hayti, they tore down Gordonier, which were where subdivisions were, but then in retrospect, those houses are gone too. The airport has tore down all those.
There's
so.
what, 3 houses in?
Yeah, so God, if we ever.
We have different times.
Yeah, it's different times.
It's
and
not safe anymore for kids to walk.
Yeah, and I think when they rebuilt the schools, you know, when they put Wick and Barth together, there might not have been no land to build them. I mean, it would have been nice to put them smack dab in a subdivision, but it's the way our city's built.
And our sub is brand new, so it wasn't even in
Yeah.
existence. It was a farm.
The next speaker is Mr. Harry Crow.
I'm sorry, Harry, I thought that was the last one.
Well, he brought one up as I was
Gotcha.
saying.
Snuck it in.
Hello, Board.
Hello.
I'm not here to criticize or yell at you. I
Thank
just got
you.
one question. You know, we're talking about taking away sports. Now, it's a savings of $400-some thousand, you said? If you took in consideration, though, a lot of kids come to Romulus to play football, basketball, and everything. Now, if you get 40 kids to say, well, I'm going somewhere else to play sports, you're going to lose over $400,000. So are you saving any money by cutting sports? Or would it be a better thing just to keep the sports, you know what I'm saying? Because you'll have more kids. A lot of kids come for basketball, football, the whole program's here, you know. And I like to see
It's
the
a
kids.
last-ditch thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the last ditch. I just
It's a
wanted you to
last
know,
resort,
you
yeah.
took that in consideration, but, you know.
Absolutely.
Because kids are going to, you know, they're not going to play sports. They're going to go somewhere else. That's why when they passed the millage to do away with transportation and sports, parents got out in groves because they wanted their kids, you know, they had transportation, and they wanted them to play sports.
You're right.
I'll keep it under 3 minutes. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You too.
Good point, thank you.
If there's no further business, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Sport.
I was going to say, we want to stay. It's been moved by Ms. Vanderberg, supported by Mr. Theed. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are adjourned at 7:57. Thank you.